Hey, I'm Miss Uhall, and I'm going to read Chapter 16 in Mr. Popper's Penguins. I unfortunately don't have penguins, but I do have some chickens, so they're going to help me read. This is Goldie, and she's going to help me read Chapter 16, On the Road. During the next day, there was much to be done at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. There were new clothes to buy for all of them, and the old ones to pack away in mothballs. Then Miss Popper had to scrub and polish and straighten the whole place, for she was much too good of a housekeeper to leave everything at 6s and 7s while the Poppers were away. Miss Greenbaum sent them their first week's pay in advance. The first thing they did was to pay off for the man who had installed the freezing plant in the basement. He had been getting rather uneasy about all the money, and after all, without him, they could never have trained the penguins. Next, they sent a check to the company who had been sending in the fresh fish all the way from the coast. And last, everything was done, and Mr. Popper turned the key to the door of the little house. They were a little late in arriving in the railroad station on account of the argument of the traffic policeman. The argument was on account of the accident in the 2 taxicabs. With 4 poppers and 12 penguins, not to mention the 8 suitcases and pail of water with the live fish for the penguins' lunch, Mr. Popper found that they could not all fit in one cab. So he had to call a second one. Isn't that right, Goldie? Each of these taxicab drivers was eager to be the first to get to the station and to surprise the people there by opening the door of his cab and letting out 6 penguins. So they raced each other all the way to the last block, and they tried to pass each other, and one of the fenders got torn off. They did. The traffic officer naturally got very annoyed. The train was about to pull out of the station when they arrived. Even with both taxicab drivers helping them through the gate and over the brass rails into the rear observation platform, they barely made it. The penguins were gasping. It had been decided that Mr. Popper should ride in the baggage car with the penguins to keep them from getting nervous, while Mr. Popper and the children would ride into the Pullmans. Because of getting on the observation at the end of the train, Mr. Popper had to take the birds through the whole length of the train. It was easy enough to get them through the club car, even with a pail of fish to carry. In the sleeping cars, however, there was a porter who was already making some of the berths, and there was trouble. The porter's wagons offered too much temptation to the penguins. There were a dozen happy orks from the dozen ecstatic beaks. Poppers, performing penguins, completely forgot their discipline, fought to climb the ladders and get into the upper berths. Poor Mr. Popper. One old lady screamed that she was going to get off the train, whether it was going 90 miles an hour or not. A gentleman wearing a clergyman's collar suggested opening a window so that the penguins could jump out. The 2 porters tried to shoo the birds out of the berths. Finally, the conductor and the brakeman with a lantern came to the rescue. It was quite a while before Mr. Popper got his pets safely into the baggage car. Miss Popper worried a little, as at the start, over the idea of having Jamie and Bill miss 10 weeks of school while they were on the road, though the children did not seem to mind. And you must remember, my loves, to Mr. Popper, who had never before been out of Stillwater, in spite of his dreams of distant countries, that travel is very broadening. From the start, the penguins were a riotous success. Even their opening performance in Seattle went off without a hitch, probably because they had already rehearsed it on a real stage. Want to see the pictures? Oh, yeah, see the pictures? It was here that the penguins added a little novelty number of their own to the program. They were the first thing on the bill. When they finished their regular act, the audience went wild. They clapped and stamped and roared for more of the Poppers performing penguins. Janie and Bill helped their father herd the penguins off the stage so the next act could go on. This next act was a tightrope walker named Monsieur Duval. The trouble was that instead of watching him from the wings, as they should have done, the penguins got interested and walked out on the stage again to watch him more closely. Unfortunately, at this moment, Monsieur Duval was doing some very difficult dance on the wire above. The audience, of course, had thought that the penguins were all through, and were very much pleased to see them return and line up with their backs to the audience, and look up Monsieur Duval dancing so carefully on the wire above them. This made everyone laugh so hard that Monsieur Duval lost his balance. "Work!" said the penguins, waddling away hurriedly, in order not to be under them when he fell. Cleverly recovering his balance, Monsieur Duval caught the wire by the inside of his elbow and saved himself. He was very angry when he saw the Popper performing penguins, opening wide their 12 wide beaks as if they were laughing at him. "Go away, you stupid things," he said to them in French. "Work!" said the penguins, pretending not to understand and making remarks to each of the penguin language about Monsieur Duval. And whenever they appeared, the more they interfered with the other acts on the program, the better the audience liked them. So I hope you enjoyed this reading of Popper's Penguins with our chickens.